tone knob too, so if it's too harsh, let me know.
Test, test, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Check, check, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Rabbi Jim looking amazing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Check, check, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Test, 1, 2, 3. You got it?
מותני לפניך רוח וקיים מותני לפניך רוח וקיים מותני לפניך.
Are all of them muted or just yours, Alan? He just must turn it off on the board. You want me or them? Do them, they're more important.
They look on the actual table.
you say, Daniel, about
Excuse me, would somebody who drives a Lexus RX 400 with Washington plates who's parked in the residential spot over here, we need to move your car.
Huh? Okay.
Oh, I have water if you want some.
One, two, three. I mean, I can hear all that. I don't know where it's coming from right here. Happy New Year, you too.
Hi, Happy New Year. I mean, I don't know. I grew up in Memphis, so that's a special place in my heart. But I really like St. Louis. And we'll never go back to Memphis, so.
Decade. 10 years. 10 years, yeah. Yeah.
What's the time of chicken in the refrigerator? Yom Kippur or Passover?
Passover, because then you can eat in all the restaurants. Because all the restaurants are cooked for Passover.
Because in Yom Kippur,
You can go biking in the highways.
I saw
Mariah said, this would be a great outdoor wedding spot. And she said, can you play the husband this year? I think it'll be the first
Now we know what the tent is.
although Scott was almost the only time.
You know how much this tent would cost?
How much?
It costs like $10,000 already. That's it. So, for the car.
Is that chair not going to be occupied?
This is the There's a chair down there. It's not really does. I think it's a lot.
How much
And you
did you
have to
say?
have people to set it up. It's not just it's setting it up. I bet it's thousands, tens of thousands.
Now, Karen, are you guys gonna? I'm gonna clear a little more. Will these people go? I don't know. Whatever you want.
Yeah, Daniel's going to play a couple things, kind of introducing me to Dura, and I think the musicians are doing that.
We're not going to have time for it. We still got 5 minutes.
But the question
We're not going to start with that.
is to say,
Just a runner.
Oh, sure, or you can say it when you go up there, whichever.
what, you know,
I love the garden, like,
This is actually kind of an amazing way to do highlight.
yes. It's a better, not that it's been fun on Friday nights, it's a better spot than over there. There's something about the, I'm not sure what it is. Maybe not. Maybe like, there's something, I like how it's framed in this moment. Maybe it's because the garden is right there. I like it. I like it a lot.
I rented lights from them for people.
Okay.
So, the whole thing was like tinted yesterday.
I didn't notice what other people told me.
Yeah. I had to send it to a Hollywood production guy because the lighting was so bad. That was the best they could do.
So interesting. I had no.
It drove me to, I spent hours trying to fit, but when you only had half the lights.
Yeah, I went by you. I thought it looked great.
You could see images of Susan.
Check.
And I'm starting too, so you can also just.
Yay day, yay day, yay day, yay day, day. Yay day, yay day, yay day, yay day, day. Yay day, yay day, yay day, yay day, day. Yay day, yay day, yay day, yay day, day. Yay day, 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 day. Yay da da, yay da 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 da, yay, yay da, yay da, yay da 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 da, yay da, yay da, yay da 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 da, yay da, yay da, yay da, yay da da. Yay day, yay day, yay day, yay day, day. Yay day, 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 yay. Yay day, day. Yay day, 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 day. Yay day, day. We good? Yay day, yay day, yay day, 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 day. Yay day, yay day, yay day, 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 day. Yay day, yay day, yay day, 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 day. Yay day, yay day, yay day, 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 day. Yay day, 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 yay day, day. We good?
Sounds nice, Daniel.
Actually, she wanted us to.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll be the next available.
Yes.
I mean, we said.
She said because what you're drawing down new into the world will not be fully revealed until she comes.
Wow. Wow. You picked it a very great place then. They're very spiritually in tune.
Okay, let's do it.
We ready?
We need to do it. It's 12 past.
Autumn, you ready?
The safest thing you could.
We're about to start, so if you want to find your seat so you're comfortable, we'll be beginning in just a moment.
At least while I speak, huh?
If you want to.
What's your big side? Figure it out.
Autumn, we live?
Look at Alien Amos and everything. That's how they turn into demons.
Shana Tova. It has been a year. So many ups and downs, so much happiness and so much disappointment, triumphs and defeats, blessings and setbacks. And here we are, gathered this morning, celebrating a new year once again. Even though it might feel as if we have walked these paths before and have celebrated many Rosh Hashanahs, there's still something about a new moon, a new trip around the sun, and a new cycle that reminds us we have much to be thankful for. Mary Oliver captures this essence with her poem, Gratitude. She writes, "I walk this path, each hour, each day, each hour, each week, and I turn towards the sun, honoring the light and the gift I've been given, to live, simply to live, to love, to be. I walk this path of becoming, following the sunflower's gaze. Today is a gift. As we begin our services this morning, I hope each of us takes a moment throughout the day to turn towards the sun, to simply live and love, and to remember and honor the gifts each of us has been given. And we express our gratitude in our service beginning on page 39 with Modeh Ani, saying how grateful we are that our souls have been returned to us once again.
Modeh Ani lefanecha ruachai v'kayam Modeh Ani lefanecha ruachai v'kayam Modeh Ani lefanecha Modeh Ani lefanecha Modeh Ani lefanecha ruachai v'kayam Modeh Ani lefanecha ruachai v'kayam Modeh Ani lefanecha Modeh Ani lefanecha. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu are traditionally the words we sing as we enter into a sanctuary. It's kind of amazing to be here with all of you all. Kind of amazing to be with all these people in 3D. Right? Not just 2x1 squares on a screen. So it's a different sort of matovu today. It's a different sort of matovu that we can say. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. The ancient rabbis added in Psuke de Zimra these words of joy, these words of celebration, with the idea being that we can get so caught in our heads. When we think gratitude, we can be so caught in the intellect. Psuke de Zimra, particularly how we do it here at CRC with Alan and Leslie and Andrew, it's a celebration of joy in our bodies too. But I've been asked to say, because of social distancing, please no dancing other than perhaps in your seats. You should feel free to dance where you are. But we still celebrate with our bodies. We still feel the joy of Psuke de Zimra. page 43.
We move into the Shema and its blessings with the Baruch Hu on page 45. Please rise, whether in body or in spirit.
There are a few generations of children who grew up at family services and remember that I would ask them to gather in the sparks. Gather in the sparks of love, of kindness, of beauty. Gather in the sparks of compassion and forgiveness. And then I would invite them to cover their eyes with their hands and look within and grow the light, the God place within them, by chanting the words of the Shema. Looking back, I hope that it would free them to know godliness not as a theistic other, but as an internal experience. I think I wanted them to know the Shema as a call to listen, to wrestle, and to find a path to the deepest within rather than the highest beyond. The call to each of us to Shema, to listen to all the different ideas and opinions that are at odds with yours, to Shema, to stop talking for a moment and listen. Adonai Eloheinu, to recognize that this means that there is, yes, a personal relationship with that which is greater than we are, that we need sometimes to call out to pray to yearn to when we're feeling most vulnerable. Adonai Eloheinu, also the plurality and the political, both the personal, the inside, and the outside, the plurality of godliness, the many different ways, Eloheinu, in plural, that we all begin to understand godliness and goodness. But then it ends with Adonai Echad, you see, oneness. We are one. Not to be put in separate pockets, taking them out when it's convenient, but living in this oneness, this allness, that we may all be versions of God, of godliness, of goodness. Goodness and gratitude guiding us, God willing, to grow the light, the God place within us all. So I haven't done children's services in a long time, but indulge me, if you would. Those of us who are here together, maybe even those of you who are at home, gather in the sparks of love, of kindness, of beauty, of compassion, and at this season of forgiveness. Cover your eyes with your hands. Look deep within. Find the light of your soul, that light that sometimes gets so dim you wonder if it's there at all. And use the Shema, as we've taught our children for so many generations, use the Shema to grow the light.
Shema Yisrael Adonai
would tell the children to slowly uncover their eyes and open them and see that the whole world was a brighter place because they were sharing their light. Daniel, I bet you remember that. It just occurred to me. You were there.
The basement over there.
Right. Across the street in our mothership in Fellowship Hall for many years. Right. And you can be seated as we continue with these blessings with the words of the Ve'ahavta that promise that as we are loved, we will love back. Please chant with me. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meyodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlektecha v'derech u'shovpecha uvkumecha ukshartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkaru ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim leloheichem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Emet. Emet. There were two groups, at least two, that crossed the sea. The ones who were very careful. They were the ones who looked down, and they were held back a bit by the mud on their shoes, but still, they made it across the sea. There were also those who looked up and were able to marvel at the walls of water towering above them. They too moved forward on dry land until they reached the other side. There were also those who moved forward in silence, in awe of the experience. It was enough for them to carry their children and their elders through the sea. And then there were those who sang. And I used to think that there was just one way that was better than all the others. But now I see that there are many ways to cross the sea. Now I see that as long as we are still crossing, some looking down, some looking up, some in silence, and some in song, all are necessary for this journey, each one doing their best, daring to move forward with each step, a little less stuck, a little closer to freedom. And so we walk, we schlep, we dance, some in silence and some in song, but in every service together.
We're on page 52.
מחמוך באלים אדוני, מכמוך נדר וקודש נורתי לא תוסף אלה. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך שפת הים.
יחד, 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 יחד כולם, כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, 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 לעולם ועד. ועד צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ופדי חינומך יהודה וישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Then Miriam, Neviah, the prophetess, she took a drum in her hand and Miriam, chanted with us. Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'o ga'a, Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'o ga'a, Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'o Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'o ga'a, Sus v'rochvo rama vayam, Sus v'rochvo rama vayam, Shiru, 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 Shiru le'Adonai. Sing to God a new song, ki ga'o ga'a, ki ga'o ga'a, ki ga'o ga'a.
Shana Tova, beloved community. This is the original religious worship space. Not the parking lot of CRC specifically, but outdoors, to be part of, to be in awe of the natural world and creation. You could even feel a breeze, not something that comes along too often in St. Louis. You can see the green space and the incredible mitzvah farm that not only helps keep our property green and fruitful, but also feeds people in our neighborhood who need resources. Our labyrinth, providing meditation, outdoor walking meditation. We call this the Ohel Moed from the Torah, the tent of meeting. Karen Flotty likes to call it the Jewish revival tent, which makes sense, right? Renewal, revival. It's all in the same sphere. So take in these moments not only of Rosh Hashanah, of the days of awe, but and not only being together, a blessing in itself, but really take in where we are, that we're outside, that we're in a beautiful place, that we can feel all of the elements. And I ask us all to call forth moments of earth, of mountains and trees and soil. Call forth moments of water, of waves and rivers and waterfalls and rain. Call forth moments of air, wind and song and breath and breeze. Call forth moments of fire, sun, candle, lightning, campfires. Call forth not only those natural images, but values and images of the way we know we ought to walk in the world. Love, compassion, joy, and justice from us to all beings, north, south, east, west, above, and below. So let us now open our hearts to what is called tefillah, simply prayer, in this outdoor sanctuary as we become sanctuary ourselves. If you're able, please stand. We're on page 53.
Adonai, Siftai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid, Tehilatecha, Adonai, Siftai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid, Tehilatecha. Adonai, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll go your living sanctuary for you. La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la Sifatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, V'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Velohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol,
וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר מושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה.
זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים, למענך אלוהים חיים.
Remember us for life and write us in the book of life for yet another year. Amen. Just want to say at this point, feeling the absence of our bar and bat mitzvah students who are traditionally part of these high holiday services by coming up and leading some of these tefillot, some of these prayers. I know I see people out there who did that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more years ago, and really hoping that soon next year we'll be able to continue that, but also to just give a shout out to all of the families who had bar and bat mitzvahs during these last year and a half, online and remote, but I know that we were all also with you as your young people went through such an important, meaningful moment. We are now on pages 56 and 57. Unatane tokef kedushat hayom. We declare the utter sanctity of this day, for it is an awe-filled day. A great shofar will be sounded, and a voice of slender silence will be heard. That voice is your own voice, a reed in the chorus, a breath in the wind. And so on page 57, we have this statement that I'm going to sing in this melody that somehow I told Alan, I'm going to sing the traditional melody. And he said, there's no such thing as a traditional melody. And he's right. But this is one of many traditional melodies. Rosh Hashanah yikatevun, yikatevun. Uvyom Som Kippur yechatemun, yechatemun. Try it. B'Rosh Hashanah yikatevun, yikatevun. Uvyom Som Kippur yechatemun, yechatemun. One more. Rosh Hashanah Yikatevun, Yikatevun, Uvyom Tzom Kippur Yechatemun, Yechatemun. Which means on Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed. How many shall pass on, and how many shall come to be? And so it seems that our fate is sealed according to this traditional liturgy. And yet, the liturgy also gives us an out, a way to respond to that previous statement, a way to respond to life so that there can be change, there can be a new direction. It says tshuva, which is returning to the inner artistry that gives life its form, seeking to become your truest self. It says tefillah, being alive to the unending flow within and around you, holding dear the transient beauty of life. And then tzedakah, knowing that we are all of us flesh and blood, and our fates are intertwined, the sweet with the bitter with the sweet, that the fruit of kindness is kindness, and good deeds are their own fulfillment. Ma'avirin et roa hagzera, we become present to the fullness of our lives and untether ourselves from the fear of what lies ahead when we go forward with those three guideposts, tefillah, teshuvah, and tzedakah. I'm going to ask everyone to please be seated and ask Rabbi Jim to put a contemporary spin on that prayer.
Does everybody know who Eliezer HaKohen is? Oh. Eliezer HaKohen, you recognize that name? Leonard Cohen, of blessed memory. Eliezer HaKohen, who got the concept of prayer and music and new takes on prayer and music. And, you know, old takes on prayer and music in this Ohel Moed, this 10th of meeting. After we've been doing this for a while, you think you've encountered everything. One year we were renting space at the J, and they forgot to show up. So nobody had a key. So we stood out in front there in the J, and I said, well, it was in the evening. The night is nice. I said, it's biblical. And we did shul out there in the gathering dark. And don't you think that was a magnificent Rosh Hashanah? It was. The first Rosh Hashanah, for me, I was in the mountains of West Virginia. I'd picked up a puppy on the road and an excellent banjo player. I was 20 minutes late for shul, and don't you think that was an excellent Rosh Hashanah in the mountains of West Virginia, cold country? It was. And don't you think that banjo player was as hot a banjo player as I have ever encountered in my life? That hitchhiker on the road to Welch, West Virginia? He was. And don't you think that puppy was the cutest puppy I ever saw in my life? And don't you think it took me 10 minutes to find a home for that puppy once I got to the shul? And don't you think that big Chrysler I borrowed just barreled its way into West Virginia as if it was driven like I was driving my living room? And don't you think that every Rosh Hashanah after that had to compare to that? And here we are, 5,782, and something equally new. We're taught that every year we draw something new into the world on Rosh Hashanah. In this year, you don't have to work too hard to figure out what that is. But every year we're taught, though the guideposts are the same, the rubrics are the same, the vocabulary is the same, we draw something new into the world every year at this time of year. And for each of us, it's something specific to who we are, to who I am, to who you are. I'm getting a nice boom here out of this guitar. And every year, the moon is the image of that growth arc. When you go out tonight, look up into the night sky, you'll see the new moon of Tishrei. That is your wisdom that you're drawing into the world. It's barely discerned on the new moon, and it begins to plump with the moon towards full expression on Sukkot, the 15th of the month, full moon. And the 15th of the month, you bump into me, aisle 4 at Schnucks, you'll be able to tell me what you know. But until then, it's somewhat premature. So be patient, brothers and sisters. Be patient in drawing your wisdom new into the world. Who by fire, who by water, who in the sunshine, who in the nighttime, and who by high ordeal, who by common trial, who in your merry, merry month of May, who by very slow decay, and who shall I say is calling? Who in a lonely slip, who by barbiturate, who in these realms of love, who by something blunt, who by avalanche, who by powder, who for his greed, who for his hunger, and who shall I say is calling? Who by brave ascent, who by accident, who in solitude, who in this mirror, who by his lady's hand, who by his own command, who in immortal chains, who in the power, and who shall I say is calling? Who by fire, who by water, who in the sunshine, who in the nighttime, who by high ordeal, who by common trial, who in your merry, merry month of May, who by very slow decay, and who shall I say is calling?
Take a point of personal privilege, just thinking as we heard that piece that my father-in-law, Norman Gordon, Amy's dad, is somehow smiling. He loved Leonard Cohen, and thought I would bring his spirit into this time and place. So now we're on page 58. I guess we're still on page 58. But please stand if you're able, and as we fill the spaces between us with Kedusha, with holiness.
נקדש שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדשים אותו משמרם, ככתוב היה דבייך, וקרא זה
kadosh, kadosh, Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch al haaretz, kevodo.
Adir adirenu Adonai, Adonai ma'atir, shikavuchu haaretz,
Baruch kevod Adonai mimakomo.
Echad hu Eloheinu, u'avinu malkeinu, u'moshienu ve'uyashmienu, be'achemav ve'nechotai.
Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Zion, Lidor vador. Hallelujah.
Lidor vador nagid God lecha, u'nesach nesakim k'shacham nafdish, v'shivcha Eloheinu lo yamush le'olam.
Amen. Baruch Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated. We end this section of prayer, of course, with a prayer for peace, prayer for shalom, prayer for healing, for wholeness, for goodness and love in the places that are most familiar and intimate to us, and those places that are far away and hard to even fathom. People we know and people we'll never meet, especially now with the world in the state it's in. Our prayers for peace, and of course its inspiration to urge us on to work for peace, to become the peace that we pray for, is increasingly imperative, not even important, but mandatory. So you can think of shalom, if you look at the Hebrew word on the top of page 62, in this prayer, Sim Shalom, you can see that the shin that begins the word shalom can stand for the word esh, which means fire. And the mayim that ends the word shalom can bring to mind, the mem, I'm sorry, that is at the end of the word shalom, can bring to mind the word mayim, which means water. That fire and that water. What is peace? But peace is there are times that we need to be fiery, and there's times we need to go with the flow. But what's in between the shin and the mem is om, right? Om, of course, that Sanskrit word that those people who practice meditation know very well. Om means harmony and balance. It's also in the Kabbalah, the word om. It's a Hebrew word that, or a Hebrew term, one of the supposed 72 names for God. So we have fire, we have water, and we have seeking the balance and the harmony of those two. That is how we seem shalom.
Sim shalom tova uvracha, ein v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al
ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד ביור פניך כי ביור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו תורת חיים ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ברחמים וחיים ושלום שים שלום טובה וברכה חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך בספר חיים ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה נזכר ונכתב לפניך אנחנו בכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים לחיים טובים ולשלום 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 ברוך אתה אדוני עושה
So we once again arrive at Seder Kriyat HaTorah, our Torah service for this. Oh, yeah, sorry. Maybe you can hear me now. Sorry about that. Get so used to wearing it, I like forget it's on. So we are on page 64 with Seder Kriyat HaTorah, our Torah service for this Rosh Hashanah morning. And we begin with Avinu Malkeinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Imenu Malkatenu, our parent, our caregiver. We cry out from our imperfect world because we want change. We want to be better. We know that we have made mistakes, and we know all too well that we are not perfect. But we hope that the words and thoughts and connections we have made today set us on a new path, the path of nourishing and caring for each other, of loving deeply and fully, and of speaking truth to power and crying out for injustice. With our pleas, we hope for guidance as we wrap ourselves in the fabric of a new year. Please rise as you are able.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Avinu Malkeinu.
So this morning, Daniel's going to be reading on page 67, and we have some special people we'd like to invite to the front here. For the Aliyah, we'd like to invite up any incoming or outgoing board members to come stand on the ground in front of the table and lead us in our Aliyah this morning. This is a really special group of people who've given so much time and will give so much time to CRC, so we want to honor them. So just kind of stand in front would be great, yeah. So you can find the blessing before the Torah reading also at the top of page 67, and then we'll go straight into our Torah reading, which is from Genesis chapter 22. Whenever you're ready. Baruch Adonai Hamelech Le'olam Va'ed.
And it was after all of these other things that came before that you didn't hear today. Ve'Elohim nisa et Avraham, and God is testing Abraham. Vayomer elav ve'Avraham, and said to Abraham, Vayomer hineni, here I am, said Abraham. Vayomer kach na et bincha et yechidcha asher ahavta et Yitzchak. And God said to Abraham, go and take your son, your only son, the one that you love, Isaac. V'lech lecha el eretz hamoraya v'alehu sham leolah al echad Heharim asher omar elecha, and you're going to take him and you're going to go to this place that I will show you, the mountain of Moriah, and you will offer up your son as a sacrifice there to me. Vayishkem Abraham baboker, and Abraham woke up really early to go. Vayechavesh et chamorav, and he loaded up his donkey. Vayikach et shnei na'arav ito vet Yitzchak bino, and he took 2 young servants and his son Isaac. Vayivakatze olah, in the wood for the offering. Vayikam vayelech el hamakom asher omar lo ha'elohim, and he set off to the place that God had commanded him to go. Biyom hashlishi, and it was on the 3rd day, so this was a really long journey. Vayisa Abraham et einav, Abraham rose and looked up with his eyes. V'yarai et hamakom merachok, and he saw the place in the distance that God had told him about. Vayomer Abraham el na'arav shvu lachem po im hachamor ve'ani v'hana'ar, and Abraham, he turns to the servants that are with him, and he unloads the donkey, and he says to these servants, me and this young boy, he's no longer calling him Isaac, he's calling him the same word we used to talk about the servants a moment ago. Nechad ko v'nishtachave v'nashuva alechem. We will go and we will offer up these sacrifices and we will return to you. Vayikach Avraham et atzeh ha'olah v'yasem al Yitzchak beno. And Abraham took the load of the wood that he had on the donkey previously, and he placed it on his son. Vayikach biyado et ha'esh v'tamachelet, and he gathered with his hands the firestone and the knife for slaughter. Vayilchu shnehem yachdav, and the 2 of them alone continued. Vayomer Yitzchak, and Isaac said to Abraham el Avraham aviv, his father, Vayomer avi, Vayomer hineni bani, and he said to his dad, Dad, and his dad said, Yep. Vayomer hine ha'esh vayitzim vayasa leolah, and he said to him, I see the fire stone and I see the wood to make the altar, but I don't see anything, no ram to offer up as a sacrifice. Vayomer Avraham Elohim yireh lo haseh leolah bani, and he said, Abraham says to his son, God will see to it, my son. Vayilchu shnehem yachdav, and once again the 2 of them continued on. Vayavo el hamakom asher amar lo Elohim, until they got to the place that God had commanded them to go. Vayiven sham Abraham et hamizbeach, and Abraham built the altar there. V'yaroch et ha'itzim, and he put out the woods for it. V'ya'akod et Yitzchak, and he bound Yitzchak his son. V'ya'akod is the word that we get the akedah from, which we call this story. Bano v'yisam ito al hamizbeach mima'al etzim, and he bound him to this altar that he had built. Vayishlach Avraham et yadav, and he sends out his hand. Vayikach et hama'achelet, and he took the knife within it. Lishcho, to butcher. It's the same word we get shochet, who's a butcher actually. Et bano, to butcher his son. Vayikra elav malach Adonai min hashamayim, but just at that moment an angel cried out from the heavens. Vayomer Avraham, Avraham vayomer hineni. The angel says to him, Abraham, and Abraham said, Yep. Vayomer al tishlach yadecha al na'ar. God forbid, do not send out your hand against this child. Ve'al ta'as lo me'uma ki ata yadati ki yirei Elohim ata ve'lo chasechta et bincha et yichidcha mimeni. For I now see that in fact you will not hold anything back from me, including your only son, the one that you love. Vayisa Avraham et einav, and once again he raises his eyes. Vayira v'hine ayelacha nacha basvach bikarnav, and he sees a ram caught by its horns in the bushes, in the thicket. V'yelech Avraham v'ikach et hayil v'alehu leola tachat bano, and Abraham offered up this ram in place of his son.
Yasher Koach. The blessing after the reading of the Torah can be found at the top of page 72. Thank you all. You may be seated. Thank you so much.
Shana Tova. So, we've returned again to this ancient story. This story that we've used to help begin our new years for generations. The Akedah, the binding of Isaac. I think we get so used to the apologetic reading, the readings that are forgiving of Abraham, that place him in a historical context or suggest that this is actually a story about how we don't offer up our children as sacrifices. I think sometimes we get so used to these apologetic readings that we miss how awful of a sugya this is, how awful of a story this is. Whether or not Abraham actually murders his son, and it's worth mentioning that the Midrash imagines that, in fact, he did slaughter his child, and then he's brought back to life. He's violated the core obligation that parents have to their children, to keep them safe, in a way that must forever reverberate in Isaac's life. In the same way that childhood abuses and traumas, particularly when they come from those that we love, so often do. Isaac is a person, as a character in our ancient tribal stories that we call the Torah. He never really comes into his own after this. He's best remembered through the stories where he's the object, he's being acted upon. The child to be slaughtered in the Akedah, the old man to be tricked in the story of Esau's stolen birthright. And the harm and trauma that Abraham causes at the binding of Isaac doesn't end just with Isaac. The Midrash teaches that Sarah Imenu, Sarah, our ancestor, heard word that Abraham had slaughtered their son as a sacrifice to their God, and she died of grief before hearing that Isaac yet lived. The Torah frames what's been asked of Abraham as a test, and yet I have trouble seeing this as anything but a test that he fails. Perhaps ancient ears could hear this story and unquestioningly accept what Abraham did as definitionally right, since God asked it of him. But I doubt that. I doubt our ancestors were really that different from us, who look out and see an Abraham blinded by his own faith, his own ideological certainty, to the point that he no longer is even able to see the human being in front of him, his own son. There's ironically something so human, so relatable about this Abraham. We hear an echo of the Akedah every time someone's religious convictions blind them to the humanity of a queer kid. Every time the majority population's faith becomes a law that strips away the rights and bodily autonomy of anyone with a uterus. Every time our political and partisan convictions rip away our empathy and replace it with righteous indignation. We see it even in the lead up to the binding itself. Abraham stops calling his son by his name, stops calling him Isaac, and instead he becomes that boy. We see it when Abraham leaves the donkey and instead loads the wood for the fire on his son's back, literally turning him into a load-bearing animal for his own impending murder. Living 1,000 years ago, Moshe ben Maimon, a great philosopher known as Maimonides or as Rambam, looked out at all of us so certain of our own truth, and he called us the worst slur he could imagine: idolaters. He did this because for Rambam, God was not a deity in any familiar sense. God was not someone or something like us who could act, who could save, who could be a superhero in response to the sincere prayers of our hearts. The God of Rambam is perhaps best understood instead as the unknowable capital T truth of the universe. E = mc squared kinds of stuff, but with absolute certainty, rather than with necessary scientific doubt. God for Rambam was a oneness beyond time, beyond space, beyond action. God is a word for the oneness that can't be comprehended, the oneness we can't empathize with because we ourselves are so profoundly not one. We change. The me of today is different than the me that moved back to St. Louis 3.5 years ago. And I'm almost a stranger to the 20-year-old version of myself that I still sometimes expect when I look in the mirror. After all, change and our ability to transcend who we have been and to become someone new is the whole idea of these days of awe. Because of this, because of who we are and because we're a part of the world and not separate from it, Rambam held that we can never actually know anything or say anything about capital T truth, about God. To say then that God is loving or kind or jealous or just or angry would be as absurd to Rambam as saying that God's cholesterol is about 80 points too high. I remember the first time I really understood this idea of Rambam, sitting in the Beit Midrash, the study hall of the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem. It was the first time in my life I felt like I had a God language that was both authentic to me and authentically Jewish. But this is not a God that offers comfort when we are suffering, other than perhaps the cold comfort of seeing ourselves as radically insignificant. After all, what is the point of waking up in the morning, putting on a tallis, wrapping tefillin, davening shacharit, saying the morning prayers to the absolute unknowable truth of the universe? There's a reason so many of us, I think, are drawn also to the God of Heschel, the image of the divine that isn't cold and distant, but is instead there with us in our suffering, sustaining us through our grief and through our joy. But perhaps the greatest implication of Rambam's idea of God is what it says about us and our messy political reality. If there is no truth, no capital T truth that we can fully know, fully hold, then it means that anyone who claims to speak with certainty is the worst kind of idolater. That whenever we believe that our ideologies, our worldviews, our faith is the truth, we've become idolaters of the mind, creating a narcissistic God made in our own image rather than the other way around. I think back to Abraham, Avraham Avinu, Abraham our ancestor, as the tradition calls him. And I see a man so certain of his own rightness, so certain in his faith, that he can no longer see Isaac, his child, his son, the one he loves, as the Torah reminds us over and over. And instead he only sees that boy, that animal, that tool in service of his ideology. I know this is us. I know this is me. I can feel it. I can feel it in the ways I've become calcified and stuck. I see it in how I think about those who have chosen not to get a vaccine or not to wear a mask and are now taking up hospital beds that can't be filled with cancer patients or stroke victims. I can feel it in the ways that I think about and talk about and read about half of my fellow Americans. If we've spent time learning Torah together, you know that I don't like redemptive endings to stories. It's why I am so bothered, and I am so bothered by it, when we sing Hatikva at the end of a Holocaust memorial. It's why I'm so cynical about the way that we talk about and romanticize and mythologize American history. As the journalist and author Ta-Nehisi Coates puts it in a letter to his own son, you must resist the common urge toward the comforting narrative of divine law, toward fairy tales that imply some irrepressible justice. The enslaved were not bricks in your road, and their lives were not chapters in your redemptive history. They were people turned to fuel for the American machine. Enslavement was not destined to end, and it is wrong to claim our present circumstances, no matter how improved, as the redemption for the lives of people who never asked for the posthumous, untouchable glory of dying for their children. Our triumphs can never compensate for this. And yet, if there is any redemption to be found in the story of the Akedah, it comes from the ram that takes Isaac's place, which lets Abraham see his son once again as human and not an animal in offering to his God. It's this ram, this horn, this shofar, that becomes the symbol for the work that we are called to do during this time. The sound that is designed to shake loose the calcifications within our souls and to open us up to the possibility of our own wrongness. Tshuva, the process of becoming the person we always should have been. Tshuva starts by tearing down the palace walls of certainty that protect us from the truth of our actions and of our impact. And so this is my blessing for us in this new year of 5782. May we be less certain of our own rightness. May we see the places where our worldviews, where our faiths, where our certainties blind us to the basic human dignity of the people before us. May we learn to serve the vulnerable rather than serve our ideologies. And may we shake ourselves loose from the people we thought we had to be so that we can yet become the people we always could have been. Shana Tova.
So before we put the Torah away, we return to our prayer books for a Misha Berach, the blessing of healing. It's on page 72. And before we take names, I want to share with you something one of my rabbis wrote growing up that has stayed with me as an introduction to the Misha Berach. Oh God, in our hearts we name those who are facing illness and pain. We join our prayers with the prayers of all who love them. Give them renewed comfort and courage, and strengthen them with the healing powers you have placed within us all. Guide the hands and hearts of those who are entrusted with their care. May the knowledge of your love and ours give added hope to them and to their dear ones. May they find even greater strength, because our prayers are linked with theirs. If there's a name you'd like to share, if you could just rise in where you're sitting and speak very loudly Natalie, if you have anyone you'd like to say for the Misha Berach. Start in the back. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Thank you. Did I miss anybody else? Yeah, please. Anybody else?
Here. Jill Hollifield and Susie Tozer.
Thank you, Leslie. Get everyone? Okay, we're on page 72. Oh, sorry, over here, one more. Thank you. Those are all the names from people who are joining us virtually.
Linda Holtzman. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaHolim.
Blessed is the Holy One who teaches us ways to bring healing and comfort to those who are ill. Let us all say Amen.
Amen.
And we have come to this moment in the service of the mitzvah gedolah, the grand mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah, which is hearing the voice of the guitar. Always updating here, but actually the shofar, a little bit older than the guitar, right, Alan?
Right.
So, yes, of course. Yes, we're going to make the blessings first, which are on page 80. So let's stand for the blessings, then we'll sit to hear the shofar. So please, stand.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar.
Let's sing a Shechianu too. Shall we?
Sure.
Poor Shechianu's gotten a little bit of kind of
Short shrift?
This holiday, but we're going to make up for it.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Amen. Let's stay standing like they did, they tell us at Sinai, hearing the sounds and kind of being all together in our listening and our hearing. So we're going to do a few things here as we go through the 3 sections of the shofar service. I want to say that through this pandemic, so many things have remained, have been adapted, but have remained. And our Tikkun Olam steering committee has done incredible work. It always has incredible leadership from the beginning of the congregation and all the way through pandemic. And I just want to make sure I recognize Josh Goldman, who's our current vice president of Tikkun Olam on the board. And Josh has put together what we've been calling chaverot, these groups of friends, or let's say allies who become friends through the important work they do. And there's many of them, as you probably have seen if you follow CRC announcements. And we thought we would take 3 of the many chavarot and ask some of the people who have been facilitating those chavaras to do the shofar calls. So for the first call, I'm going to ask if Chris Hexter and or Miriam Levin are here. Are you guys out there? I know that everybody kind of made some last-minute decisions here. There's Chris.
And while they're walking up,
yeah, please.
I will just mention, for those of you who may be nervous, I have just had a test for COVID just before this service, and so not to worry.
So, Chris is standing back anyway, Miss Vegas. So, Chris and Miriam have been helping to lead the voting rights Chavara. Clearly, don't have to say how vital and important that is. I want to remind them, because we didn't have a chance to talk before, this is a little bit of a different section. If you look, you guys, at Shevarim Trua, that's one call. It's like a hybrid, which is a word we've certainly gotten used to. Shevarim Trua. So when you make that second call, say both those words at the same time. So this is the section known as Malchiot, which celebrates the sovereignty of God or godliness, which we're defining as the highest good towards which we and all peacemakers must direct our paths. So whenever you're ready, start the call. Thank you. Keep up the good work. For our second set of calls, we're going to be recognizing our LGBTQ plus Chavara, and the representative, the facilitator, is Will Mowry. Will, are you here? Will is here. Yes, Will, come on up. So Will has been facilitating that very important Chavara. Also, like all of us, Will is on a journey And this is a significant part of this journey, these high holidays, and doing the shofar calls. And this is the first time that we're going to give Will his Hebrew name, which he has chosen for himself. It's always an amazing thing when you can pick a name out for yourself, right? And so Will has chosen the name Yosef Simcha. It's a strong, beautiful Hebrew name, Yosef. Joseph is your middle name, everyday middle name, so it's a great sort of callback to that. And Simcha means joy and happiness, which you can tell, look at everybody, he's filled with joy and happiness, and also thank you for your volunteer work with the sound and vision. And so I would like to officially say, Vayikra Shemo B'Yisrael, Yosef Simcha. May your name be in the house of Israel at various occasions when we are called to use your Hebrew name as opposed to your everyday name. You will be known as Yosef Simcha. May you use that name, as we know you will, with great gravity and joy befitting Simcha. Amen.
Mazel tov, man.
And happy birthday. Well, for goodness sake. It's your birthday, the world's birthday. This is a good thing. And there's a note here from Rabbi Susan that from the first time since the day Will was born, September 7th, and the first day of Tishrei, which is today, Rosh Hashanah, are again the same day. So the day you were born, it was the first of Tishrei, and now, all these years later, it is also the first day of Tishrei. So Mazel Tov and Yasher Koach. And this is Zichronot, the section of remembrance. Of course, one of the names of Rosh Hashanah is Yom HaZikaron. We not only look forward, but we also remember the people, the places, the moments that are significant in our lives and in our history. So when you're ready, on the bottom of page 81, Yosef Simcha, let's hear those calls. Thank you. And for the third and the last section, I'm going to ask Micah Rose. Micah is one of the facilitators of our Racial Justice Havara. This is the Havara that I've been most involved in. His co-leader, Melissa Bennett, was supposed to be here, but unfortunately Melissa's son is not feeling well. And so Melissa sends her regards, and we're obviously praying for her son Derek's healing. But the Racial Justice Havara has been doing some important and really difficult work of really trying to figure out how to be the best congregation we can for Jews of color and people of color. This is the section known as Shofarot, all about shofar itself. This is the Aboriginal sound which wakes us up to envision a future with a world repaired and healed. And so certainly racial justice is a big part of that, and this is a big responsibility. Micah, a second generation CRC friend. So whenever you're ready, on page 82.
Tequila.
Hold on. Let's take a pause for Alan, for all of us. A deep breath, everybody. We're going to take a deep breath for Alan. This is, of course, you'll hear the call. So we're ready for 5782, and for this wake up, as Micah says, the words.
Tequila Gedola.
you're seated, we're going to put the Torah back in the ark with the shofar still ringing in our ears. We're on page 85, the words of Eitz Chaim. That Torah, as Rabbi Daniel demonstrated once again, is truly a living tree of life.
Eitz Chaim lamazikim ba v'toh mechea meusha derachea darcheno bechol netiotea Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu
We're on page 86. Can we do the great lines? No?
Yalenu, yeah, Yalenu. Alenu, boys.
Aleinu, Aleinu. What does it mean? It's simple. Our language is simple. It's strong and simple. Aleinu, it's on us. It's on us. It's on us. When we come to Aleinu, we are almost cooked. We have moved from the singular Shema Yisrael to the plural Aleinu. It's on us. That's the loftiness of our Lashon Kodesh, of our holy language. We ought to be able to speak poetry with the most economical language. Aleinu. It's on us. How can we not get that? It's on us. I learned everything I needed in these matters from Bon Yeshua, who wrote a lot of this music you're hearing. He was unafraid to enter that space beyond complacency, you know, where creativity happens. And he was also loyal to pure and rooted postures. It's on us, Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגורלנו ככל המונה. עומדים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Please be seated.
Kaddish, last thing always in our prayers, the last thing we remember. Many prayers, lots to say, fastings, carryings on, tapping my chest, laying flat out on the earth, up on my toes, down on my toes, up on my toes, down on my toes. 3 steps up, 3 steps back. I bow, you bow. I stand, you sit, I stand. By the time we are done, we will be proper done. I will have had enough prayers. Then I might begin with visions. One prayer I will be left with after everything. This prayer of remembering, holy and dear. This always the last prayer, the deepest prayer of every day. 3 words in Hebrew, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. 3 words in English, we miss you.
So many names. So many people upon whose shoulders we stand. So many people built this community for us, whose chairs are empty today. I'll try to say all of those names at our Yizkor service at the end of Yom Kippur. But today we hold them in our hearts. But if you're in your year of mourning and you're here with us today, I'll ask you to stand first, just so we can acknowledge your presence here. It's been a year of great loss. May their memories be a blessing. If you have a yard site at this time, yard site during the holidays is always a challenge. If you wish someone you love was sitting next to you, I'll ask you to stand next. And I ask you to believe for just a moment that they're here, that they are here with us. I know everybody's had some kind of loss, so if you're able, we'll ask you to stand. And for those of you who are seated, we get it. We're standing with you, beside you, sitting with you, you know. Gabe Weil, a blessed memory, always came, and his wheelchair was always such a great teacher, and those around him sat with him and stood at the same time. I just want to mention one name, and because I see these flowers from our garden priestess, our flower priestess, Vicki Lander, who gives us these flowers from her flower farm. And I know that these flowers were also grown by her sacred partner and our former president, Jack Oglander of blessed memory. Think about the seeds that all of our loved ones have planted. They may not all come up like beautiful flowers of Jack's, but they do come up. We just have to be open to watch for them. So for all the losses that we know, for all the losses, we defy death with this prayer, the words of the Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayachon uvyom echon uv'chayedachol be'Yisrael ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omei omaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha barichu le'elam bin kol birchata v'shirata v'tushbachata v'nechemata ta'amiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Say shalom v'imroma. Yaseh shalom.
Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen.
Ve'imru, 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 amen. Ve'imru,
Please be seated. This is really wonderful. I mean, I know that there's been a little sound visual delay for the people at home, and we'll try to get that fixed. We still hope that you were able to feel like you're here with us, and I have to say, being here with you has really been moving. It's been a long time since we had a community to worship together. So I really am grateful to our team, I can't even name everybody who's made this happen, but most of them are standing around you because they've been here since 6 o'clock this morning to make sure that everything has worked. So to the volunteers, Lisa Huxley got all these volunteers together, and we thank you, Lisa. I see Lisa's there somewhere. She's so great. And all these wonderful volunteers that showed up to support Autumn, and Alana, who's kind of magical and made this tent thing happen where nobody else could get tents. And I think she even put chair covers on. I had a wedding once where couples almost didn't get married because of chair covers. It's really a thing. But by the way, it's out if you want a copy. It's called The Sin of Certitude. Did you know that? I don't. Anyway, Rabbi Daniel, has kind of taken us into the 21st century with his ability to, get us across all kinds of waves. So to thank you to Daniel and his team, and to everybody who kept us safe today and let us be here. And I'm supposed to tell you that if you didn't sign up for Yom Kippur because you signed up for Rosh Hashanah, we have room at Yom Kippur. So now you can sign up for Yom Kippur too, for the day services, and come back if you'd like. And there's still room for those of you who are out there. It really is lovely to be here with you. There will be children's services today at 2:30. There will be Tashlich with Rabbi Randy and his wonderful walk to Murphy Lake to get rid of the schmutz. And then at 4:30, you can look it on our website, at 4 different parks, from Millennial Park way out west to Tower Grove Park, and with 2 parks in between, I think. right? Is that right? Shaw and Forest Park, right?
That's Tashley. So it's a little bit.
Oh, Tashley will be right. So then, at these other parks at 4:30, we'll be there to blow the shofar again for anybody out there who still hasn't been able to have the mitzvah. Come and join us. Be short and sweet. There are apples and honey for you who have come here today to take with you safely on your way. And tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, right here, second day Rosh Hashanah, that we've been doing for many, many years, and tomorrow will be a special treat because Rabbi Jim and the brothers Lazaroff and their band will be here to help us sing our way into this new year. And we'll be doing some of the psalms that Jim has put together as well. And I think that's all the announcements I was asked to make. I see our president sitting here, Natalie. Thank you for guiding us, for all the leadership of this community that has carried us through this difficult time. Thank you. Oh, Tashley is 3:30. I thought that's what I said. So Tashley here, meeting here, and then walking to Murphy Park with Rabbi Randy. So that's clear. All right. And now I think I'm going to invite everyone. We're going to end. So please rise again if you're able. And rabbinic team, we've got this blessing that Bonya gave us. Have we got here? You ready? Going to do it? Okay, here we go.
And now at the beginning of a new year, we pray for a blessing.
The spirit of insight and knowledge.
Amen.
The spirit of knowledge and reverence.
Amen.
May we overcome trouble, pain, and sorrow.
Amen.
May our days and our years increase.
Amen. Yehi ratzon lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu שתחדש עלינו שנה טובה ומתוקה.
Eternal our God and God of our people, renew us for a good year.
Amen. Amen. May it be a good year.
May it be a healthy year.
May it be a healthy year.
May it be a year of peace.
May it be a year of peace.
May it be a good year.
May it be a healthy year.
May it be a year of peace. May it be a good year.
May it be a healthy year.
May it be a healthy year.
May it be a year of peace. May we have the strength.
May we have the strength
To make it so.
to make it so.
Shana Tova
לכל בני ישראל ולכל בני אנוש. שנה טובה לכל בני ישראל ולכל
We always go from Kaddish to Kiddush, right? From that place of that's empty inside of us, dare to fill, expand with joy.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is a lot of gluten right here. There's why a double portion? Because on holidays, you know, we got the manna every day, but we didn't have to work so hard on these holy days, on Shabbat, on holy days, so we always have two, right, to carry us through. May there always be enough for everyone, and I think Rabbi Daniel challenged us today, you know, to know that it's up to us. We have to be the vessels for whatever we call God, so. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Every time I say it, I look at our garden. We don't hamotzi lechem min haaretz, do we? We don't get the bread from the earth. We have to make it. We have to grow it. We have to grind it. And we have to turn it into something holy. May we have the strength in this new year to continue doing that for each other. And I guess we can't really leave each other without that. Yeah, so, you know, if you can put your arms around your bubble people, the people in your pods, the people you know you're safe with, right? We tested right before the service with Alan, so we're in a bubble right now. And so take a bit of this and share it with all the people whose lives you touch.
May we have a year of health, healing, happiness, and blessing.
Oh, and may the light that surrounded us and flew and soared through us today be part of our walk as we enter into this new year, 5782, filled with light. Tell them.
When the upper worlds and the lower worlds find each other, it will be a secret, generous wisdom, and every individual will be known as a version of God.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. I'm God 2.0.
May we all be inscribed in the book of life for a new year.
Do you have a script, a new script? Right there?
Everything right here. There. I am here, right? So sometimes you have new lines, but it's a long time since I've been full so far. Yes.
All I can think is there a way to put up a piece of
No, I told him I asked him